Hello and welcome back to Films on High. This is Dex,
This is Alex.
and today the film that we're going to review is Hell or High Water. Directed by David Mackenzie, this came out in 2016 as a crime thriller starring Jeff Bridges, Chris Pine, Ben Foster, and Gil Birmingham. Two brothers from Texas stealing from local banks, trying to save their ranch, whilst the sheriff, semi-retired, are on the verge of retirement, and his partner are hot on their trail, trying to solve one last case before he goes and just sits on his porch. So, what'd you think of this film?
Well, this is a like kind of, I guess, neo-noir Western type of film. Like, it's a film that uses a lot of familiar tropes, but uses them in a pretty effective way. Like, Taylor Sheridan has become a pretty big deal at this point. He wrote the film. It was directed by David Mackenzie, but Taylor Sheridan, he started out as an actor. He was on Sons of Anarchy, but then he sort of branched into writing his own scripts and directing his own films. And he went on this really solid run of like movies like this, and now he does like Yellowstone and all the associated properties with that. And the movie he's probably most known for, I think, is Sicario, which was a movie I sort of had mixed feelings on. Like, that was a movie a lot of people loved. I thought it was okay, but I had like some issues with it. This film I prefer to Sicario. Like, it's like an energetic film. It starts off really well. Like, a bank robbery film is a difficult thing to pull off. Like, I've never been like a huge fan of bank robbery movies. Like, even movies like Heat and stuff like that. Like, the whole, technical bank robbery where it's just an excuse to show off. Like, my favorite bank robbery movie is probably Dog Day Afternoon, which is like a movie more about like the hostage situation and the psychological kind of thing. Like, the whole, like, the car chases and the shootouts, like, that's, blah blah. But I like the way they approach the bank robberies in this film and how they get into it like right off the bat. Like, the movie sort of dives into it and does a good job. And Taylor Sheridan, he even though he makes these sort of genre movies, he writes these sort of more genre type of scripts, he has a gift for sort of characterization, and he does a really good job with exposition, where he's able to establish things efficiently in dialogue. He can get like character relationships across very, very kind of in a realistic way, but like in a way without taking too much time. Like, he does it quickly and efficiently and sells you on it. And in this movie, like, he does a good job with the two brothers. Like, we see right away. There's Tanner, played by Ben Foster, who's the older, more unhinged one, and Toby, the kind of younger, more responsible one, played by Chris Pine. And they have an interesting dynamic where Toby, like, his agenda, like, is he wants to save their family ranch, and their mother has recently passed away, and Tanner was in prison for a lot of their lives, and he's the more loose cannon. So now they're in this position where Toby desperately wants to save this ranch, and not necessarily just for like because the ranch means something to him, but because it represents like a future. He sees it as the inheritance of his children. He wants to give it to his sons, and that sort of ties into this larger theme in the film too. Like, there's a lot of imagery of like poverty and debt and recession and stuff that was going on during the time, and the representation of a certain kind of life dying out. Like, that sort of down home Texas rancher lifestyle is almost dying out, and we see that with Toby's sons, where his older son is like, why would I even want that ranch kind of thing. Like, when he's told about it, to him, he doesn't even see the value in it. But to Toby, that's, it's a future. Like, it means something, like it's going to mean that they're not going to have to struggle. They're not going to have to be poor. Like, that's a very realistic thing that a lot of parents have, where they want to safeguard a future for their children. And the way that's kind of it's put up against this backdrop of like the banks and this whole oppressive system that's taking properties away and kind of eating away at people's lives, and how Tanner and Toby are almost like modern day outlaws fighting against that. Like, it's using these sort of tropes really effectively, but also like modernizing them in a way where, it's a bit more hard-edged, a bit more, there's a darkness there too as well. And the whole theme of like the changing of the guard and, the fading of the age is also represented with Marcus Hamilton, the Texas Ranger, played by Jeff Bridges, who ends up going on their trail. And again, that's a very kind of old like trope, the old officer about to retire and stuff. We've seen that in a lot of movies, and fuck. We've seen that in a lot of movies before, that trope of the old lawman about to retire. And like you mentioned, it sort of recalls No Country for Old Men. Like, the movie sort of has that feel of like Cormac McCarthy, or something like Terrence Malick's Badlands, like this real kind of Texan American sort of feel to it. Sam Peckinpah also I would sort of compare it to. So the movie draws from this kind of rich period, and even though it's using these tropes like the lawman about to retire, it does so in a way where it feels fresh, and it's like the actors all do a great job. Like Jeff Bridges, he's always reliable in roles like these. Like, we've seen him, he almost became like the go-to guy for playing this kind of character, but he never phones it in. Like, he always kind of brings a gravitas to these kinds of roles. And Chris Pine and Ben Foster, who are just fantastic. Like, Chris Pine obviously was mostly known, I think, for playing Captain Kirk in the new rebooted Star Trek, and Ben Foster is an actor who sort of went off the radar for a bit, which kind of sucks because I was always really impressed with him. He was always really good at playing these intense sort of characters in movies like Alpha Dog and things like that. So it's great to see them in this film, and they work really well together. They embody these characters really well, and they create this scenario where it's like suitably complex. Like, there's sympathy there, like you sympathize with their goals in a sense, because they are like I said, the fact that he is trying to build a future for his sons makes his goal a bit more sympathetic. But the movie doesn't let you forget at the same time that, there's a cost, and, this is the weight of crime and things like that. It's not so much like, just a straight up like fun outlaw shoot 'em up movie. There is like a deeper meaning to it as well, which I really enjoyed.
And the way that the director uses the shots, the scenes, the landscape of Texas itself, where he would do a more of a wide shot, getting to see the land, getting to see these characters traversing through this tense couple of days, because all of this happens during a week where, as you mentioned, he's trying to save up enough money to, set up a future for his kids. And the way that they go about it, into how these two paths are going to converge, they do it nice and subtle in a way where it's organic. You get to understand who these characters are without having to dive into a whole backstory of why their tragedies are their tragedies. And you just kind of like, okay, who am I rooting for? Am I rooting for the robbers? Am I rooting for the law enforcement? And then both sides have good points about what they're trying to accomplish, essentially. But also, both of them have their own flaws, as you can see. And so it kind of just weaves itself through that passage in order to tell a really good story about, crime versus justice, corruption, and, just economics,
pressure, family legacy.
Exactly. And just how far are you going to go for revenge, and what does revenge look like? And compared to Sicario, I like this movie a little bit more just because it's more cold.
Well, it's cold, but it's not quite as fatalistic as Sicario. Like, that movie, I felt like almost got bogged down with its own sort of darkness and ultra-violence, in a sense, where it just felt almost like overbearingly cynical. This movie doesn't fall into that trap, which I like. Like, there is a high energy to it, and it's probably like its greatest success is, like I said, taking these familiar sort of tropes but employing them in a way where there's enough narrative depth there. Like, he's using that whole kind of financial backdrop and this idea of particularly small town America, like places like Texas that have this kind of ingrained culture, and it's a really kind of Texan story. Like, you see the regular people are armed, and like the citizens are almost more like the citizens are more determined to stop these guys than the Rangers are. Like, they have their own sense of vigilanteism, and that adds to the tension. Like, all of these little things that, like the ticking clock of them only having so much time to pay off these loans to the bank, and the fact that they're in this state where so many of the, common citizenry are armed, it creates a lot more tension within the film. So there's like a realism to it, and like a depth to it, and the whole the efficiency of Taylor Sheridan's writing, of being able to communicate things so fast. And like right from the beginning, like we get those initial robbery scenes, and then we get some scenes with the brothers, and just through dialogue, and we understand the whole situation, and we understand what their relationship was like, and the whole context. And the same thing with the Rangers, the Marcus Hamilton character and his partner Alberto Parker. And Alberto Parker is a half native and half Mexican, so they sort of use that. Like, you have the typical sort of, Jeff Bridges' character is kind of the older, typical down-home guy, so he makes a lot of sort of racial jokes and stuff like that. So there is kind of that back-and-forth banter, but he also uses that, again, to further contextualize the story. Like, the whole idea of the presence of the natives and the Comanche and the history that's kind of built into this state and this particular place. Like, it's a really clever script, and I like how, like, he gave the movie a real sense of identity. Like, it's a movie that you feel it wouldn't work anywhere else. It does have this really kind of genuinely Texan identity, but it doesn't necessarily, like, bog you over the head with bullshit stereotypes or, like, messaging. Like, it's a really nice, lean, efficient movie. There's a good dialogue, good chemistry with the actors, some really good action scenes, like some really fantastic scenes of tension, like intelligent tension that's written into the script too, not just like bullshit trying to jerk the audience off necessarily. Like, it almost feels like, I remember when we watched the movie Dragged Across Concrete, like, that movie was so bloated and so overlong, and it was maybe trying to do something a little bit similar, like a movie that was about the tension of, the making it in America and crime and economics and all that. But this movie does a much better job, I feel. Like, it's just so lean and to the bone and really well shot. Like, yeah, like you mentioned, all those landscape shots of Texas, like the oil fires and the brush fires and stuff like that. It creates like a really sort of singular visual aesthetic as well that really helps the movie. So I was really impressed with it. Like, I went into it maybe not expecting to like it as much as I did, but I like how, even though on the surface it just seems like another kind of bullshit bank robber movie, there is a lot of substance in there, a lot of great characterization, and a lot of, like, intelligent social commentary in the script that is not didactic and not just kind of insulting the audience. That's a difficult thing to... That's a rare thing. It's becoming increasingly rare in movies, unfortunately.
No, with the way that the movie told its story, where, as you mentioned, it doesn't hold your hand, but it makes it pretty clear of who these characters are, and by the point that you get to the ending, there might be a little bit of controversy, but it's kind of cut clear and dry.
Yeah.
And the way that you feel for the characters by the end of it, you're kind of left with this feeling of just like, well, this whole thing just never ends,
Yeah, well, they chose, like, in some ways, I feel like the movie sags a little bit in the last half hour, just compared to how, like, it starts off so, like, high octane and really good, but it doesn't necessarily sink the whole film. Like, it still works, and I like how he sort of chose ambiguity over spectacle. Like, he could have gone in a more definitive direction, but instead he left it more open-ended, left this kind of open question, and, that adds to the whole moral texture of the film, and they created these bonds, like these emotional bonds and these emotional stakes with the characters that are really resonant and really feel like they're genuine. So when you have those kind of moments, like, and again, like, that's the brilliance of the movie. We've seen this before. We've seen the showdowns, like the bank robber and the lawman and all this kind of stuff. But the movie manages to kind of just recontextualize it in a way where it does feel fresh and it feels, like, vital, like it pulls you into it. So I was impressed by it.
For a modern cowboy western movie, I am going to rate this 4.5 out of 5. It's one of those types of movies that's really, as mentioned, rare to see, and it kind of blew my socks off, especially with Ben Foster, my man, and Chris Pine, who's been doing his own thing. It's
Yeah,
just
they both
like,
did a great job.
it's a good movie.
Yeah, really solid film. I'll give it a nice 4 out of 5. Like, it's a really good, solid thriller. Good, solid sort of neo-Western. And even the whole neo-Western thing, like, that becomes such a crutch that I feel like a lot of people lean on, where they abuse those kind of ideas or those images that are so familiar for Westerns to just, for aesthetic bullshit. But in this movie, it really works. Like, drawing on that kind of the history that Texas has and the American Southwest, and updating that kind of outlaw mythos, and playing off that whole the showing the how it modernizes and how it changes, like the presence of the banks and how that becomes a new oppressive force that rallies people into becoming outlaws, into breaking the law and doing this kind of stuff. Like, yeah, it's a movie that it seems like when you if you would just to see maybe the trailer or you just hear it described, you would think, oh, just a standard kind of. But when you dig into it, there's a lot of depth in there, a lot of substance. So it's a strong film, and I would recommend it for sure.
So, have you seen the film? What did you think about it? Let us know down in the comments down below. But until then, it's been Film on High.
Peace.
Later.